In this video, we're going to have a look at how to set up an equation for a given situation and then solve that equation. When setting up an equation for a given situation, it means you need to take the English and translate it to algebra. Because every situation is unique, this is something that takes practice. We are going to have a look at two examples. Example 1. The length of a rectangle is x plus 3 meters and the breadth is x minus 2 meters. If the area is 66 meters squared, calculate the value of x. Starting with the first part of information, it is given that the length of a rectangle is. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. We are given that the length of this rectangle is x plus 3 meters, which I'm going to add on my sketch. Next, we are also given that the breadth of this rectangle is x minus 2 meters, which we can also add on the sketch. And the last bit of information says that the area of the rectangle is 66 meters squared, and for this we need to add the correct algebra. You should know that the area of a rectangle is calculated by saying length times breadth. And we are given that the area is 66 meters squared, and that is why we do substitution on the left-hand side. We are also given that the length is x plus 3, and this should be multiplied by the breadth, which is also given. Here we now have an equation that we can solve. On the right-hand side, we have two brackets that need to be multiplied out. That will give me x squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 6. Next, you need to realize that you can solve this equation by rewriting it in the form a times b equals 0. Firstly, you can simplify by adding up the like terms on the right-hand side to get 1x, and then I'm also going to take the 66 on the left and subtract it on the right to get a 0 on the left-hand side. And now we have x squared plus 1x minus 72, which is a trinomial that we can factorize. Factorizing this will form the brackets x plus 9 multiplied by x minus 8. And now we know that either the x plus 9 can be equal to 0 or the x minus 8 can be equal to 0, which means that x is equal to minus 9 or to 8. Because we are working with a given situation, we need to check these two answers to determine which one works with our situation. If we go and substitute the x value with minus 9, you will find that we have negative lengths, which is not possible. That means that minus 9 is not valid for our specific situation, and the final answer will be that x is equal to 8 meters. To test, we can substitute x with 8, and the length will be 8 plus 3, which is 11. And the breadth will be 8 minus 2, which is 6. And multiplying 11 by 6 will give me the area of 66 meters squared. Example 2. A man travels in his car from home and realizes that he forgot something, makes a U-turn at a traffic light and drives back home. His average speed from home to the traffic light is 60 kilometers per hour, and back home it is 100 kilometers per hour. The total time taken from home to the traffic light and back home is 30 minutes. Calculate the distance between his home and the traffic light. Here we now have a whole lot of reading and information. It helps if you then start by looking at what it is that they are asking, which in this case is the distance between his home and the traffic light, and then to make that some kind of variable. Now we can go back to the start and gather all the information. We are told that the man travels from his home to the traffic light and then back again. His average speed from home to the traffic light is 60 kilometers per hour, and traveling back home, it is 100 kilometers per hour. They also mention that his total trip through the traffic light and back takes him 30 minutes. So here we are working with different measurements. Firstly, his speed in kilometers per hour, then his time in minutes, and we need to determine the distance. To determine our final distance, we need to use the relationship between these three measurements. And even though there is a formula, if you don't know the formula, you can simply use the units in which we measure speed. Speed is measured in kilometers, which is our distance, per hour, which is our time. This ratio can of course be rewritten by multiplying the time on the left, which will then be the speed times the time will give us the distance. And then we can also say that the time is equal to the distance divided by the speed. So here you can see that this one ratio can be written and used in many different forms. We are asked to determine the distance between his home and the traffic light, which we called x. We know that he travels a distance of x kilometers towards the traffic light at 60 kilometers per hour, and again x kilometers back home at 100 kilometers per hour. This means that the time that it travels to the traffic light will be longer than the time it takes him to drive back home, because now he's driving faster. Here it was mentioned that his time to the traffic light and back again was 30 minutes. It is important to note that his speed is given in kilometers per hour, so you need to convert the 30 minutes to half an hour. This means that we know that the time it takes him to drive to the traffic light added to the time it takes him to drive back home again is equal to half an hour. To determine these two times, I'm going to use the formula that describes the time in terms of the distance and speed. So his time to the traffic light was a distance of x traveled at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour, and then back home he still travels the distance of x, but now at 100 kilometers per hour. These two times added up will give us a total of half an hour. And now we have our equation. The rest will be algebra that we'll use to solve x. Because we have fractions, our first step will be to get a common denominator, and in this case that will be 300. For the first fraction, we still need to multiply the denominator by 5, and that means in the numerator we will have 5 times x. For the second fraction, we multiply by 3, so the numerator will form 3x, and on the right we still have to multiply by 150 to get 150 in the numerator. Because we have the same denominator on both sides, in my next step I can only focus on the numerators. On the left we have 5x plus 3x, and on the right we have 150. Once you've divided both sides by 8, you will have x is equal to 18,75, and x is our distance from home to the traffic light, which means that that distance is 18,75 kilometers. In this video, we only had a look at 2 examples of setting up an equation. You're welcome to follow the link in the description to the Grade 8 video on the same topic to see some more examples.